Hello, everybody. I'm so glad you're here at the Holiday Resilience Masterclass. I just felt that this year of all years would be a great opportunity for us to gather so we can think together about this one of a kind holiday that we are moving into with Christmas and New Year 2020 being during a pandemic. So let me open with a word of prayer before we begin. Lord, I just thank you that you've brought everyone and chosen them to be here and listening to this message and discussion. And I bless each one, Lord, and just pray that you would be with them and show them your love and let them feel your presence in the present as we speak together tonight. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. So we are in uncharted waters, aren't we? Um, just when you think things are getting better, there's a surge in COVID, and lots of things have changed in our lives this year. But I know that God is with us and He's always with us. It just sometimes, when there's a lot of change going on, it can be disrupting to our souls as well as just how our circumstances are. So I wanted to do this class to help us create the kind of atmosphere in our minds, in our hearts, in our souls, in our spirits that will help us to remain peaceful and joyful and be relational throughout this holiday time. So some of the possible stressors that we have, there's a lot of COVID-19 stipulations and restrictions that are happening in various parts of the country. And some of those may prevent us from gathering at all. Some of them may allow certain size groups. And we all may be coming from different parts of the country and have different opinions about that. So that's one possible situation we'll face. Another thing is just the normal relational tensions that we have in our relationships with one another, differing opinions, some past hurts that may not be resolved. Maybe somebody has made some life choices that make others very uncomfortable and make being together a difficult thing. So relational tensions are also a thing that we face possibly when we gather. Sudden changes of plans. Somebody gets sick and they can't come. Somebody has something come up that's unavoidable that they just can't come. Sudden changes of plans are a possibility. Financial pressures due to the disruption of this year can be something that we will have to face as a family. And concern for elderly relatives, both for their health and welfare and also for their emotional well-being. We don't want them to be isolated. So those are things that I'm thinking of, and you may have more that you'd like to talk about, and we can do that when I'm done with the class today. So the first thing I want to talk about is preparing your space. So thinking ahead of what you can do to facilitate and provide a hospitable environment for a gathering. Whoever's home it is, you can be a part of it if it's someone else's home by offering to help in certain ways. Some people may not feel comfortable being inside. So I know people are trying patio heaters. I'm trying to find some for my deck for this Christmas because it is our family's Christmas this year. We trade off holidays in our family. I have a very big family. I have 5 kids, all married, and 12 grandchildren. So when we gather, there are 24 of us. It's a big deal. And we don't all stay in one house, but we do gather together, all 24 of us, as often as we can. And with the issues that we're having with COVID, we are trying to think if we can possibly go outside as much as possible. So we're looking into some patio heaters for that, and maybe some canopies and things that we can do that we can spend time outside, as well as activities like skating or anything that you can think of where you can be outside if it's not too cold. Those are things that we are thinking of as far as preparing our space. Some of that may include also wearing masks if people feel comfortable with that and aren't comfortable if we don't do that. Um, and getting consensus ahead of time about how everybody feels and what everybody thinks is a really good idea, I think. I tend to be the director of communication and the social director for my family. And so I try to communicate regularly with my family anyway, and I'm trying to find out what everybody feels and what everybody wants, and just have a, a consensus, reach a consensus ahead of time so that everyone feels like they've had a say, everyone can weigh in, and we can settle on something by consensus. So that's how we are working at this, trying to have the conversations ahead of time and doing a financial check-in. So some careers have been hit harder than others. And we want to be sensitive to that and offer to help in any ways that we can if others are traveling our way, or if it's our turn to travel and we're having a financial crunch, just to be able to speak up. And again, this is about having the conversation ahead of time and making preparations ahead of time so that this can go well. Um, if there is a restriction in place, either by the state government or just in the consensus of how our family feels that we should not gather, then planning how to do a Zoom gathering is something that others have tried and are doing, and finding ways to do that in a way that's really interesting. I've been thinking ahead about my mom's this Christmas this year. She's 87 and she's not traveling anywhere, and she doesn't have anybody coming in because last Christmas they all gathered and everyone got sick. It wasn't COVID, but it was the flu, and everyone with the concerns they have for her health and it being COVID this year, they're not going to gather. So she'll be on her own. She'll probably see some of my brothers and sisters that live close for just a minute. But I want to do something on Zoom with her, with my family gathering, that enables her to feel like she's included, and maybe let the kids do some songs for her, have little cameos with the grandkids, and with each child, everybody says something to her and lets her respond. And that will also mean that I'm going to have to show her how to do Zoom, because you can't really do it on FaceTime the same way. So thinking ahead about this is what I'm doing and having the conversations ahead of time, working with my family in Ohio, where my mom is, to make this a reality is something that I want to make a priority. So that, and then of course, preparing your physical space. So everything has been really clean, disinfected. You have plenty of hand sanitizer around, the usual and sensible things that you'll want to do. And so those are some things that I'm thinking about for preparing your space. And I'm thinking also of physical preparations for health. Our family has started taking a supplement that is an antiviral that one of my family members swears by. So some of us are trying that too as another way to be prepared. Preparing your heart. So I want to move on to preparing our hearts now. And sometimes there are just things that we haven't cleaned up that are like clutter in a room. They're hanging around in our heart, resentments, things where we haven't fully forgiven, where we've chosen to move on, but maybe we didn't do the work of forgiveness. And forgiveness is a work. It does take work. It's something that doesn't just happen because we say, I forgive you once. It really does take some deeper work. So I wanted to share with you some things that I do. And I have these things in the form of handouts that I'm going to offer you afterwards. So this is something I call the crossroads of forgiveness. And I've used this many times when I need to get everything out of me and onto something, onto the cross. The cross is the place where everything goes. It's like all of our trash, all of our sin, all of the areas that we need to forgive need to go there, whether it's things we need forgiveness for or we need to forgive people for the damage that their sins against us have done. And there's just stuff that, if life is busy and we don't take the time, whatever, for whatever reason, we can leave that clutter in the room. And as we're preparing to gather for the holidays, I really know that I want to do this. I want to make sure that I've done the heart work that I need to do. So the cross that I just showed you, on the front side of it, I write anything that I know that I need forgiveness for, anything that I've not fully reckoned, or even if I've asked forgiveness, just to make sure, I put it there on the front of that paper cross. And I take it by faith to the cross and prayerfully deposit it there. And then I flip the page over, and on the back side of that cross, I write all the things that have been done against me, the sins committed against me, because they do damage me. And the cross is the solution for those things too. It is where we can take those things, and the Lord can take the pain and the damage in our hearts out of that when we bring it to Him at the cross. So that's what I do every time that I know that when I discover I have stuff in my heart that just won't go away, resentments that are hanging around. I do this as a memorial stone. The Old Testament talks about memorial stones in many, many places where they erected a monument or stones of remembrance for something big that happened so they wouldn't forget it. And this to me is like that. And so when I put my sins on the front and the sins committed against me on the back, and prayerfully bring them to Jesus and choose to forgive those things that have been done against me and ask His forgiveness for those things I've done, then it's done. Because when those things are swallowed up in the death of Christ, then we're free to be resurrected with Him, free of all those things, free of the penalty of sin. And so I take this and I shred it, I rip it up. Sometimes I have burned it, but I make a ceremony of it so that I will remember that I took this and I dealt with it, and then it is no more. I don't leave it around so I can look at it again and remember and sort of, relive it. But I really go there. I leave that at the cross and destroy it. And that is an act of faith. Now, another thing I do is the 77 times 7 forgiveness. And I'm going to read a scripture about that. So this is in Matthew 18. You're probably very familiar with it. It says, Peter came to Him and asked, Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? 7 times? No, not 7 times, Jesus replied, but 70 times 7. And that means innumerable times. There's no limit to the times that we forgive those who have hurt us. And that is something we have to work at. So I had someone in my life that I needed to forgive that was what I would call my 70 times 7 person, that they consistently hurt me in a way that just made me have to go to the Lord with this again and again and again. And the way that I was victorious over this resentment and unforgiveness was every time I thought of something that made me feel resentful or angry about this person's behavior towards me, I said, I choose to forgive. I choose to forgive. And it might be 70 times a day in the beginning. And it got less and less as time went on. But one day there was critical mass after doing that for some years, because this person had hurt me for many years. It took a few years to really get to the end of that. But 70 times 7, I just kept thought for thought. I shared my thought with him. I said, Lord, I choose to forgive. I choose to forgive. I receive your forgiveness. Help my heart. Just quick prayers as I'm going through my day. And one day I was in a worship service and I had one of those thoughts and I said it again. And I had a picture from the Lord that his hand came down out of heaven and he pulled something out of my heart that looked like a big hairy root. And he took it away. And I felt so clean. I was completely cleaned out of all that resentment and unforgiveness. And it truly felt like a deliverance. And I know that was symbolic of a root of bitterness. And I was delivered of a root of bitterness that day. And I'm so grateful because I was free to love that person ever after that. It was never the same again after I did that. And I know that this works, and I really recommend to you that you do this. And you may need to do it during your holiday celebration if there are things like that, but make it a practice to do your 70 times 7 thought, just your thoughts offered to the Lord as a prayer. I choose to forgive, Lord. I choose to forgive. So now I'd like to share with you about preparing yourself to stay peaceful and joyful and relationally connected. And I have some exercises that I wanted to share with you, and I will also send these to you if you want in paper form in a handout. The first one is interactive gratitude. The second one is a manual journaling. And the third is a manual healing prayer. Now, these are all tools from Life Model Works, which my husband is one of the leaders of this organization. And they are proven, and they're based in research and science and theology and all of the good stuff that we believe in. And they are powerful. And they are things that I make a habit of and that I do with others that are my friends and people that I'm ministering to. So interactive gratitude is something that you do when you don't have a ton of time. It's something that you practice as a habit throughout your days, throughout your weeks. And it goes like this. You begin just to take a moment. You maybe are feeling a sense of stress or overly busy, or might feel a little anxiety, or you just haven't had any real good time with the Lord for the day. So you quiet yourself and you think of something that you're grateful for. So it might be, Lord, I'm so grateful that my family is coming to be with me this year. And I'm so grateful that you are with us all. And I'm so grateful that you have your big arms around us, holding us close. And Lord, I'm just asking you to speak to me and show me what you think about us. And then as I just did this now, I just felt like the Lord said, you are my precious ones. You are my precious family that I adore. And I'm here with surprises for you to help you enjoy one another and build good memories with your multi-generational community here in your home. And that just makes me remember why we're doing this. And I feel peaceful. I feel overtaken by his presence with me. I just did that real time with you right now. Now, if you're in a moment maybe that you're not feeling particularly happy, where you're struggling, you still can choose to thank him for being with you. Lord, I thank you that you're here right now. I know you are. You've been with me so many other times. And I'm so glad that you are able to show yourself to me. And I ask you to show yourself to me now, Lord, and see what he does. And the reason I'm confident that he will do this is because A, it's in the Bible, and B, I've done it so many times before, and he has responded to my gratitude. That's why it's called interactive gratitude. It's a dialogue, not a monologue. When I hear years past, when I've heard people talk about gratitude, it's more like a monologue. We're just choosing to rehearse the things we're thankful for without offering them to God and entering into a conversation with him and awaiting his response. And that's what makes interactive gratitude really powerful, I believe. And let me read a couple scriptures here. So the first one here is in Psalm 95, and it is in verse 16. I'm sorry, I've got the wrong one here. Psalm 95, verse 2. Let us come into his presence with thanksgiving, and let us make a joyful noise to him with songs of praise. So you come into his presence with thanksgiving. It's almost like it's the key to opening up his presence is thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. So thanksgiving and praise are going to open up the door to being present with the Lord. And another scripture, and this is 1 Corinthians 2, verse 16. For who has understood the mind of the Lord so as to instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. So we do have the mind of Christ, and he can just share his thoughts with us. I remember the day when I began to believe that I have the mind of Christ and that I can share thoughts with him. That I used to wonder, is that my thought or his thought? Is it my thought or his thought? And I just don't worry anymore about it, because I know he'll show me if it's not his thought. And that when he shares his thoughts with me, I will know them, because I wouldn't have thought of that. And there's so many times when he does that. So this practice of interactive gratitude is one that you can do all day, every day, as often as you can think of it, and make it a habit, because it will help you live in the presence of God, the manifested, tangible presence of God in the present moment throughout your days. And you can do this when you don't have much time, when you're running around your kitchen getting ready for company, when you're cleaning, when you're at the grocery store, when you're in your car. You can do it anytime. And it's very simple and very easy. Now, a manual journaling also begins with interactive gratitude, or what's called a 5-bar moment or a golden memory, which is pretty much the same thing. We're grateful for a wonderful moment of connection that we remember with him. And manual journaling is something you do when you have a bit more time, like in the mornings or in the evenings. I make this a practice because it is a dialogue with God, a journaling method that is a dialogue with God based on the story of Hagar. And it also has similarities to the story of Moses. So it's the progression of God meeting with a person and answering the questions of their hearts. So I will read some of the points that you journal about. Again, I have this as a handout that I can send to you, and it will be something you can put in the back of your journal. And I keep it in the back of my journal all the time. It's a template here. It's a cheat sheet, if you will, but a template for doing this manual journaling exercise. So you begin with your interactive gratitude or your wonderful golden memory with the Lord. and listen for his response. And then you ask him how he sees you and wait for his response. You ask how he hears you and wait for his response, how he understands you and wait for his response. How are you glad to be with me? Waiting for his response. And then lastly, what do you want to say or give me? And let him respond to that. And it's an amazing thing of how the Lord communicates with you in response to those questions of the heart. Because these questions, this progression of questions, is very much common to all of us. And I have found it super powerful. And if you do this with a group of people and share your journal, it's even more powerful because you can take things from another person that the Lord has given them. So that is something that I'd love for you to be able to have and do as a regular practice, because it will anchor you in peace and joy in your life. So, and lastly, I wanted to share with you about Emmanuel healing prayer. And I have a template for this that I can send. Now, this is something that you do when you're perplexed or have been hurt. And you do this with someone else. You need someone else to be with you to help carry this with you. And once again, you begin with your interactive gratitude or your golden memory, waiting for his response. And then ask the Lord where he invite him into this moment where you've experienced pain and you're disrupted in your soul. And ask him to come and show you where he is with you there in that place of pain, in the same way he is with you in that wonderful memory. And just sit with him and allow him to show you where he was all along, where he is with you, and to bring that story up to date. Because when we're in a lot of pain, we don't always see where the Lord is in it, and we can lose connection with him. And this is a way to reconnect with him wherever we might have lost connection, or where we want to prevent that from happening. So all of these tools, I want to give you the forgiveness exercises and the interactive gratitude, Emmanuel journaling, and Emmanuel healing. They're all these, the last three are all from Life Model Works, and I'll put the link for the website in there because there's tons of wonderful resources there. And I would just need your email address for that. If you could put it in the chat, and I will put a link there so you can actually put your email in the sign up for this masterclass, so that I'll have your emails all in one spot. And that would be the best way to do that. So I'll have the link there for you. And lastly, I'd like to invite you to join me in my discipleship mastermind this coming year in January. We'll start probably about the second week of January. This is for 12 women. It's a 12-week mastermind. And we're going through my book called The Divine Invitation, Entering the Dance of Becoming Fully Alive. And this is going to be a wonderful opportunity for you to deepen your relationship with Jesus, and to do it with a group of like-minded women who are wanting to live an Emmanuel life, a 24/7, 365-day-a-year connectedness to Jesus and to others. That is what the Great Commandment is all about. God bless you. Thank you for coming. I'm so glad, and I hope that I will see you in this coming year.